Hey, welcome back from our lunch break. We are coming back to, public hearing item 3. And that is public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance amending the legal description of the districts 3 and 5 in section 71.73.A, municipal service taxing units, Article 3, general ordinances of the Martin County Code. Ms. Elder, good afternoon.
Yes. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Elise Elder, Senior Assistant County Attorney. As Commissioner Smith said, we are here at a public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance that would amend Districts 3 and 5 municipal service taxing units, the MSTUs, in the ordinances. As you recall, in December, the Commission approved changes to the commission districts based on the census as required by Florida law and directed the County Attorney's Office to amend the MSTU ordinance so it was consistent with the new commission districts, which we did. And then subsequently, a Scrivener's error was discovered in the legal descriptions.
We gave too much property to District 3. I want to reconsider.
So we had to come back and change the resolution and amend the commission districts. So today, we're just here to make the MSTU boundaries consistent with those commission districts. So we're amending the ordinance to fix the legal description for District 3 and District 5. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, if there are no questions.
Move to approve.
Second.
Wow, Harold, that was
It is a public hearing.
that's where I was trying to get before he did that, but that's okay. He was on it.
I don't blame them.
Trying to stop the conversation.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and it's a public hearing to consider the adoption of an ordinance that amends the legal descriptions of districts, MSTU districts 3 and 5, which is more or less a Scrivener's error in what we did back in December, January,
Well, it was, yes, in April.
April. Time flies.
So we're just fixing it from April.
Okay, anybody from the public? Seeing nobody from the public, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Campy opposing.
That's right.
Thank you.
An interesting little factoid when somebody from the state wants to review the minutes of the meeting and wonders why the commissioner didn't want to support the accurateness of the.
Scenic highway tree canopy. Somehow I get a, I
Trying
get
to take care of my district.
I get a state prison.
We weren't adding or detracting anything, we're just fixing an error. But I get
The
it.
more I think about it, how,
no-
how 3 goes from Hobe Sound all the way through Indiantown, all the way to the northern portion of the county. He's like Thomas Jefferson.
Request denied. The next item on the agenda is a quasi judicial hearing, request for a zoning district change by Jeffrey Giroux. Mr. Elam, welcome.
Oh.
Wow. Yeah, that one's for you.
I want to make sure someone didn't pull the chair out from behind him.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, I'm Brian Elam, Senior Planner with Growth Management. Copy the agenda item in my,
Wait a minute, we need to do,
Wait.
has to do a few
It's okay.
things.
Yeah, he's got a whole thing that he's.
No, it's just a process. So this is a quasi judicial hearing. Commissioner Jenkins, any ex parte?
Not that I know of, but if I do, they've been filed.
Commissioner Heatherington?
I don't have any and they've been filed.
Commissioner Campy?
I don't have any, and it's been filed.
Commissioner Hurd?
have any, and they've been filed.
And I don't believe that I have any. If they are, they have been filed. Are there any interveners? Mr. Walden? Mr. Elam? No? Have you turned in, or are you going to turn in the, your work history and your other stuff you need to turn in?
yes.
Call that Smith.
And notices were turned in at the LPA.
Wonderful. I did ask for interveners, correct? And there are no interveners. I think, we got to swear in our witnesses, right? There's always just one little hang-up. Anybody that's going to testify or so on this item needs to be sworn in. And again, if you don't and you come to the podium, we will have to re-swear you in.
Please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Now, Mr. Elam,
Thank you.
welcome.
For the record, Brian Elam, Senior Planner with Growth Management. A copy of the agenda item and my work history have been provided. This is a request by Mr. Giroux for a proposed amendment to the county zoning atlas on an approximate 4-acre parcel of land located at 8600 Southeast Gomez Avenue in Hobe Sound. The proposed amendment is to change the existing zoning district from A1A Agricultural District to RE1-A Residential Estate District. Included with this application is a request for a certificate of public facilities exemption. Just an aerial photograph, the property is outlined in red, single-family residential to the north and south, and the Jimmy Graham Boat Ramp and Park to the east.
That was quick.
That's really consistent
it.
with the presentation.
There we go.
They're just playing a trick on you.
I'm going to get this.
See if you're paying attention.
You're hazing the new guy.
No hands.
There we go.
That was the USS Walden. That was interesting.
The current zoning district on the property is A1A, Agricultural District, Category C zoning district, in the current Article 3 zoning code of Martin County's land development regulations. Future land use is estate density, 2 units per acre per Martin County Comprehensive Growth Management Plan future land use map. The current zoning district is inconsistent with the future land use, therefore this is considered a mandatory rezoning. There's one standard zoning district available to implement the comp plans, estate density 2 unit per acre land use policies, and that is RE1-A. PUD zoning is also an option. This proposed amendment went before the LPA on June 2nd and was voted 4-0 to approve staff's recommendation for rezoning. So staff has concluded that this application is, that RE1-A is an appropriate zoning district with respect to the application of the goals, objectives, and policies of Martin County's Comprehensive Growth Management Plan, land development regulations, and county codes. Staff recommends the board move to receive and file the agenda item and the staff report as Exhibit 1, and staff recommends the board approve the request to rezone from A1A Agricultural District to RE1-A Residential Estate District. And that concludes the presentation.
You made it. Fantastic.
Now the grilling begins.
Any questions of staff on this item? Do we have an applicant at all? We do.
Good afternoon. Mike McCarty, McCarty and Associates, Land Planning and Design, representing the property owner and applicant. I did provide the appropriate notification affidavit to staff, both for the mail-outs and the postage of the sign on site, and that was submitted at the LPA. This is a straightforward application. There's one straight zoning designation available to this property. It's a mandatory rezone, bringing the zoning consistent with the land use. We have no future development plans at this point in time. We're just trying to bring the property into compliance for future. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Any questions for the applicant?
Move to approve staff's recommendation.
Pending public comment.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. This is a quasi judicial hearing. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment from the public on this item? And this would be public hearing item number 1, or quasi judicial item number 1, rezoning by Jeffrey Giroux in staff's presentation. Seeing none, back to the board. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you.
You killed it, Mike.
And Brian.
Okay, next item on the agenda is department item number 1. Ms. Manning, good afternoon. Office of Management and Budget items which require board approval.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jennifer Manning, OMB Director. I have 6 items on the agenda. The first item is the Coastal Management Division is requesting permission to apply for the 2024 local government funding request, which is the LGFR, through Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And this is for the St. Lucie Inlet Management Construction Program. The grant award would be for $2.8 million. It would require a $2.8 million match, which is programmed in the CIP. The funding is good for up to 3 years after construction. The second item is also permission to apply for the 2024 LGFR funding through FDEP as well, and this is for the Beach Management Construction Program. If awarded, the grant would be roughly $1.3 million, requesting a match of $2.2 million, which is also programmed in the CIP, and it will require staff time to manage. The third item is permission to apply also to the LGFR through FDEP, but this is for the design portion of the beach management program. The grant award would be for $114,925, and the match required would be $135,075. The fourth item is permission to accept the Emergency Management Preparedness and Assistance Trust grant funding. This is in the amount of $105,806. The funding will be used for salary, training, and planning to enhance the emergency management programs. The fifth item is a permission to accept the BJA FY 2020 Criminal Alien Assistant Grant Program on behalf of the sheriff in the amount of $89,694. The funding will be used to offset the costs for the Martin County Sheriff Corrections Facility. The final item is a request from staff to approve a budget resolution in the amount of $841,168. This is the allocation through the Federal Highway Administration funds that are a proportionate share that is given back to the county for the MPO program. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much.
you.
Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Manning?
I will move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Anybody from the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Jennifer, thank you. Okay, Department 2, or item Department 2, contracts that meet the threshold for board approval of $1 million or greater. Ms. Brotherington? Hey, look who's there.
Hello.
How are you? Good afternoon.
How are you?
Hang on a second, Christie.
Can
Commissioner Heatherington?
Commissioners separate out A1, the Stewart Yacht and Country Club, and I will be recusing myself. Ferrera Construction, for which I am an employee of, bid on the item, although they were not awarded. And I have turned in my Form AB and will abstain from that particular item.
Okay, so just A1.
A1.
Okay, great. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Christy Brotherton, Purchasing Manager. The first item is our Stewart Yacht and Country Club Fairway East Water Main Replacement Project. Staff is recommending that the board award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, which is Jamie Underground Incorporated, in the amount of $1,248,987, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute any and all documents related to this request.
Do you want to?
Motion.
No, do them all, and we'll come back at the end.
Okay. The second item is the Martin County Public Safety Training Complex. This bid was broken up where there was a base bid, alternate 1, alternate 2, and alternate 3. And staff is recommending that the board award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder, which is All Site Construction, in the amount of $4,749,030. Which is outlined below for the base bid, alternate 1 excluding the dryer and top load washer. Alternate 2 is not being awarded, and alternate 3 is a per linear foot pricing. And move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute any and all documents related to this request. And that concludes this item.
Okay, Commissioners, any questions on item 2, or on Department item 2? Anybody from the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, back to the board. We need a motion for A1.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. All those opposed? Motion carries 4 to 0 with Commissioner Heatherington abstaining, and she has filed her form for that item, as she did before we started the agenda item. And we need a motion for item 2.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Anybody from the public on this item? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Christie, thank you very much.
Nice job.
Okay, item department number 3, request approval for proposed changes to the Martin County Art and Public Places Program Manual and Budget. Ms. Corres, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well, it's a snazzy background.
Isn't it, though?
Nice.
Well, it is kind of
It's
a,
artsy fartsy. There you go.
exactly.
Got it.
It's what we want to show. Susan Corres, Office of Community Development Manager. Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's been a few years since I've reported to you on the state of the art here in Martin County, so we've made a couple of changes and a couple of additions, and I thought I'd just bring you up to date on what's been going on. So we'll be off. I like to start with a mission, just so that we're all talking about the same thing. We all know what the framework is. So to enhance the quality of the visual environment in the Martin County community, both natural and constructed. And let's take a look at what we have. This is our inventory. I do apologize, we are missing one off this list. It is Southeast of Disorder, and it's hanging from the ceiling in the Elliott Museum. So if you've been in there in the past year, you've seen it there on loan. So this is what,
Be out in front of the Arts Council.
it used to be in front of the Arts Council and was donated to the county years ago.
Weather was beating it up, and it was not
Yeah.
like in the outdoors.
So this is what we kind of inherited in 2017. These are some new pieces that have been added since that time, what we have acquired. In 2017, the program moved to, under the auspices of the Office of Community Development, the CRA Board became the Public Art Advisory Committee, if you remember at that time. And since then, we have worked really hard. We didn't have a very clear idea of exactly what we had, what shape was it in, where was it, what did it look like. We had no real program documentation, budgetary information. There was a lot of pieces, so we had to put them all together. And we spent some time early on just coming up with kind of our 8-part plan of what we wanted to do and to move it along in that way. So that's what I'm going to tell you about today. I'm going to go through each one. It's pretty quick and painless. So the first one was to inspect and repair the inventory and construct a maintenance plan for each piece. So we concentrated on analyzing what was out there, what did it need to have, and how we were going to get that done. So what we found out at the time was that we had 15 artworks then. 11 of them needed some work, whether it was re-waxing a bronze, refreshing a mural, replacing lighting, doing things like that in all different places all over the county. So we spent some time doing that. I'd like to report that all inventory is currently in good repair, each with its own maintenance plan and budgetary projection. So what has happened since then is that every single piece in our inventory gets looked at, inspected, if you will, every 12 to 18 months. And you'll see later in the presentation where we have each one listed, and it has what they need, when did they last have that, and what the program is for that moving forward with the funding along with that. Just to give you a quick idea of our last two, you did not see these two last time because of COVID. They kind of fell back in terms of getting done. But I love to show this because you can see what a difference. So here's the restoration. This is the ceramic relief mural that's on the Stewart Beach bathroom. And now with the new cafe and everything looking so gorgeous out there, we were happy to have this one completed as well. And I wanted to show you this one as well. This is at Howe Patioki. There were some wildlife mosaics. This was done quite early on in the program, and they were on the ground in front of the, what do they call them? Not kiosks, concessions. Thank you. And as you can see, this one, which used to be the Panther, was no longer. We're not quite sure what happened to it. It just wasn't there anymore. And you can see how they had deteriorated over the years. Part of the problem was that they were put in the cement, and you can see in the kind of the corners and the seams of the cement. So it really wasn't going to work out for us to put them back that way. So what we came up with was we had the original artist come back. She recreated this mosaic for us, redesigned and recreated, and she completely overhauled that one. And then we decided we would install them on the walls of those concessions so as not to have the same problem in the future. I think they look spectacular. The community can easily see them. And we'll just keep an eye on the others so that if that same type of thing starts to happen, we'll do the same procedure.
So somebody literally like walked off with the piece by piece, the other one.
That looks just like the one in your yard.
Yeah. That's great.
We don't really know exactly how it happened. It's when we went to inspect it after it had been there, I don't even know, 10 or 12 years, it was no longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe 20.
So it was
Yeah, maybe.
It was a heist.
It was. So number 2 on our list of 8 was to secure a steady stream of funding, and we did that in 2019. If you remember, we came to you and let you know that funding for the program was quite low. We do have a mechanism in our ordinance. It's a 1% of the cost of construction of county buildings. Nothing really was being built. Yes, we did just get bond issue for all of the firehouses and et cetera, but that 1% does not include Witham Field, and it did not include any bond projects that were paid for with bond funds. So the commissioners decided that you would give the program $50,000 a year to keep it going, make sure that our inventory stayed repaired, and see what we could do. So thank you very much for that. We got that done. So number 3, moving on, reorganize all relevant program documentation. So what we have is now 3 pieces, and that's pretty much what we work off of. We have an ordinance. That ordinance, I am not asking for any changes, for you to approve any changes to that. We did do that years ago. It still seems to be standing the test of time so far, so we'll keep it as is. The program manual, I am looking for approval for a few tweaks. They're fairly minor. I think you could see them in your packet. The front cover has, needs new dates. We have some additions and deletions to the table of contents, and updating the number of pieces that we have throughout the document, pages 2 and 4 specifically. And then we had a change to a form, and that is the form that we've been using to assess the pieces each year. And we just changed it so that it's a little bit shorter, kind of works better for us. That was that. And I did want to talk about a new program that we're proposing. So there's a new program in our manual, Martin Murals. And I'm putting up this picture not because these are murals that are here in Martin County, but just to give us a little inspiration, a little feel for what is around. We do have some new murals here that are quite fun and interesting. So part of our mission, part of the Art in Public Places mission is to create a high-quality public realm in a manner that's very visible to visitors, guests, residents. So the Public Art Advisory Committee wanted to create some kind of vehicle to move that idea forward. So this is what we came up with. If you had reviewed that in your packet, you would see that we have all of the things a new program, I think, needs to have. So it's an application process. It's fairly simple. It's a first-come, first-serve type of application. There's X amount of funding per year. And again, I'll show you how that works later. And it really encourages public-private partnerships because the program Art in Public Places would fund up to $7,500 per project. So if you ask a professional muralist or local artist in this area, which I have asked many questions, that being one of them, what does it cost to do a mural? Well, of course, it depends on the size, but most of them will tell you between $7,000 and $10,000. I think that's pretty fair. I did talk to muralists that do work in this county, so we thought $7,500 per project was a good way to start, and then again, encouraging those public-private partnerships. The rules are fairly simple again. They have to be placed on exterior walls, visible from the right-of-way or parking areas. We can use private property. You need a licensing agreement from the owner to do that in a maintenance plan. We are requiring a maintenance plan for each one of these projects. Obviously, they can't advertise goods, services, or merchandise, and they come back, each one of these would come back after being vetted by staff, would come back to the Public Art Advisory Committee and then to you for approval. So, yes.
Can we pause there for a second?
Sure.
Do you have any questions on this one? Because I have a thought or a question. There's nothing. Okay, you want to express that now?
Well, I mean, there's a big difference on what people think art is. Right? So, and I see expressions coming from the back of the room and probably has the same reaction to what you put up on the screen here.
Just an example.
I realize that, but we're talking about using tax money to, I don't know where I'm going with this comment, so I'll just shut up now. So, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe I can redirect.
I never
All right.
bring anything easy. Come on.
So I guess my first question, Susan, was that this doesn't prevent a private owner of a building or individual to do a mural on their building if they chose to. It's not like this is an ordinance that says if you're going to do that, you have to go this way. Like you have to get approval.
Private owners can put murals on their buildings should they choose, as long as they follow zoning and any other code. They don't need to come to the,
And to the best of my knowledge,
AIPP.
nothing in our zoning code that describes what you can or cannot.
there is something that does describe what, so there are murals that are considered signs and then murals that are considered art. So the ones that are, painted right on a building is considered a sign, and it can talk about your business, it can advertise your business. If it's generally a mural that it's an artistic form of something,
So if you
we
have-
don't really allow advertisement.
So not advertisement. So
Right.
like the old days where a tobacco company would put some kind of Red Man pouch something on the side of a barn, right? You can't do that.
Again, you would have to follow the sign rules for that.
What he's asking is where taxpayers wouldn't pay for advertisement, is where you're going with that.
Well, both. In the example I'm asking, if somebody has a building and they decide they want to put Wrigley Spearmint Gum historic-looking artwork on the side of their building,
That's all right.
can you do that, or is that an advertisement?
That's an advertisement, so you would have to follow the sign.
Okay, the sign ordinance. Okay, fair enough.
Yes.
But we're not contributing any money to that, so they can do whatever they want to do as long as it follows the sign ordinance structure.
Correct.
Okay. The second part of that is if you're not doing a piece of advertisement, if it's a piece of art, and you're not asking from county funding, you can still do that.
So a private business person who
Somebody
wants
owns a
to put
building
something.
and
Yes.
they have a wall and they say, I want to paint a trend
Yes.
mural on the side of my building, which we have one of those in downtown Jensen. They
Yes.
can still do that, and that doesn't trigger anything one way or the other.
Correct.
Okay. The third idea is if what you're proposing is that there are county dollars that would go to a public art project that someone who wanted to do on the side of their building, right? A privately owned building, not our building, but it could be.
Could be.
And what you're suggesting is there's $7,500 available for someone to match or to do that on the side of a building. I think what Commissioner Jenkins is asking is who then makes that final decision, whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, Because I remember years ago in Hope Sound, there was some public art that wanted to be done, and there was a group that did not like that idea.
So it would need to, what we were thinking is we would go ahead and do the first project, meaning the committee, and put out a call for artists to do that, in which case you can kind of outline what you might like to see, this kind of a theme. We want it to be historical. We want it to be something that, ties to the ocean or whatever it is that you're looking for, and give them the location, and then artists come back with their ideas. That then goes through the process, just like any other art piece that we would look for, commission, or purchase. That would go through the Art and Public Places Committee. They would take a look at it, and then it would come to the Board of County Commissioners.
So ultimately, this board would have the final say regardless of what the Public Art and Public Places Board says. We don't like that.
Correct.
That puts us in a really weird spot.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's going to come to the thing, and my reaction is that's some hippie stuff. I don't want to have nothing to do with it, right?
So you just lost the
and
hippie
that,
vote, Harold.
huh?
You just lost the hippie vote, Harold.
He is
Well, I am the hippie, but anyway, no,
hippies.
it's
How old are you?
He's the.
He's 70?
what? It's subjective.
Yeah.
Your age?
Right. And so what Frank thinks is appropriate and much younger, much prettier person would think is appropriate are two completely different things. I don't know where you're going with this. I just kind of see a can of worms.
So you have, Commissioner, you have a mural program in Hobe Sound.
I have a mural. I'm one of them. I love it. And the community appreciates everything that Nadia does.
Right. And
I
they're
paid
gorgeous,
that.
and everybody loves them.
As a private.
I paid for that. Right.
We have a new mural in Palm City. Everybody loves it. I mean, I just,
But
What you just put on, if you're trying to sell me on this, what here, none of that I would want. Me,
you don't like the dogs?
I don't, well,
You don't like Einstein?
oh, is that Einstein? I thought it was somebody
I
on,
missed that one.
yeah.
Very cerebral.
So, but Susan, I think what Harold's saying, was the one in Palm City privately funded or not?
That was not funded through Art and Public Places.
That was volunteers
expert.
from my people.
Your people.
Actually, some of your people too. Martin County High School art teachers and their students, Jensen Beach High School art teachers and their students, and volunteers in the community painted that. A majority of the paint we got from Sherwin-Williams for free, and some of the other stuff was donated, and it came out very nice.
So the mural thing, I think. So Susan, really what you're asking us for, I think, you're asking to add a mural component to the public art and places thing?
Correct.
So that's the question.
Most
Do you wanna have
public
that?
art programs have one. City of Stewart has one, for example. I think that the things that they've done have been very nice. You know, I am looking, what I think the Public Art Advisory Committee is going for here are some areas that maybe could use not just beautification, but a little bit of, Instagram worthy, like bringing people, getting people to come, look at things, that's really what they do.
But is that the public's obligation, or should that be in the hands of the private sector?
Part of the art of living is living with art.
Now we're free falling.
I don't need to say anymore.
No. So Commissioner Heatherington, hang on.
I
a
was
sec.
just going to say, if those areas were identified, then, maybe as Commissioner Campy said, private individuals took it upon themselves to, private resources and get community support for, and that might be, the direction. If those areas are identified and the Committee of Art and Public Places wants to identify those and bring them to our attention, then maybe that's something that the private sector would want to participate in.
And there's got to be some criteria too.
So the only, I
I'm
think.
not sure what you're asking, Commissioner.
No, so the
Encouraging nature scene, apolitical.
Well, again, that's.
I mean, all of these things,
So I think, so what's funny about this conversation, I think, funny, we have an art in public places program,
Correct.
which I guess maybe in some people's minds are 3D physical things that get built that are public art. Now, even that becomes
Some would think, yes.
becomes questionable.
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt.
If I'm just trying to be in the middle of this thing somewhere, all she's asking for is that we add another component to that idea. You know, there have been public art pieces that have been pitched to us before that I couldn't support. I didn't like them. I didn't think they were the right project for the right thing. And even though it offends some people if you don't pick that art, that's still the 5 of ours choice at the end of the day, that if you really don't like it, just say so. I mean, you know, it's not the end of the world. I mean, we did the Stewart Beach project, which I think is funny you showed that. That originally started out as a painting, a mural. And I said to them back then, I said, that's crazy, because the beach is like the hardest maintenance on paint you can get from the salt air, and just the atmosphere out there is really is tough. So we convinced her to switch directions and go in mosaics. She brought in the kids from Jensen Beach High School and the art teacher, and they made most of the pieces on the wall. It was fantastic. I mean, it was a great collaborative thing that took it from being a mural to being a mural with pieces that had like, tiles and whatnot that were had much more longevity to them than whatever. I think you know, I'm not opposed to the. I think the examples maybe are you know, whatever.
She messed up right there, yeah.
But I think to
I'll
give
vet them past you next.
smart idea. I'm not opposed to adding it, because like we have in Jensen, we have a fantastic muralist, and she goes to conferences around the country, and she has actually wanted to for years bring some of the best muralists in the country to do a conference here in Martin County, and they're literally some of the very best that exist. Now, maybe it's not this artwork, maybe it's something, you know, whatever. And I could say, if she were going to put up a mural, I would leave all the confidence in the world that she would put up a fantastic mural that everybody, like Nadia, would do, and everybody would be happy with it. I think where it gets a little rough, obviously, maybe for some of us, is if it gets outside of our comfort zone. And then what do you do?
And I would like to point out as well that it's a public art program, so yes, public dollars do support the artwork. That everything that you'll see here has been supported by the county.
I mean,
So I don't want you to get caught up on
We
that.
had the guy who heads up the program in West Palm come up to our CRA program 3 years ago. And he brought yeah, there you go. Get it off the screen.
I feel better now. Frank, you feel better now?
And you know, from the city's perspective, and West Palm is a very different place than Martin County, right? A little bit maybe more progressive in many ways. They have had some of the best, they've had international muralists come and do some of the highest quality artwork that exists. They get people from all over the world coming in to see that specific piece of artwork done by those individuals. And that's, I don't know that we're ready for that here, but I mean, you can see where this goes and what's the logic that's behind a really well-structured public art program. And if murals are part of it, they're a part of it. If they're not, they're not, I guess. Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I just think that we're so constrained by political correctness that it would be difficult to get 3 votes on any mural. And I'm not so sure that what we'd end up with would be considered art. It would just be considered, well, that doesn't offend me.
It's a statement.
Is that really what we want to spend
I
tax
guess that's
dollars on? Is there something that, well, it doesn't offend me, so I guess it's okay. Or, you know, look at that beautiful scene of the ocean and the beach. Well, go to the ocean, go to the beach.
See the real
You
thing.
know? So I just think that just because we're a political body, that the examples that Susan provided, and I thought that they were excellent examples, we couldn't have gotten 3 people to support any one of those.
The dogs were kind of cool.
one.
Well, they're whimsical, they're
one
colorful.
of
I
those-
mean, nobody loves whimsy or
those
color more
classic
than I do,
examples.
but I don't know that I would.
Careful what you ask for.
Well, be careful what you ask for, Dawn. Make sure that on things like that, everybody comes around and meets with us ahead of time to kind of get a feel for, you think this is a good idea or a really bad idea?
Well, I think that the art in public places that we've done is either abstract, or if it's not abstract, it's a mosaic, because those are the least offensive kinds of things that we can agree upon.
You know, Susan, and apparently, there's been enough success in Harold's district, now some in Palm City. I've got one or two in Jensen, that if the private sector wants to do them, and there's enough rules that kind of say it's either an advertisement or it's art, maybe you leave it at that. I don't know. I agree with Sarah, maybe at this point, I don't know if we'd get 3 votes to even support adding it to the ballot.
Well, that would be the start.
I understand that, so, anything else you want to share with us on this one?
I'm going to continue, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm just
All
glad
right.
we stopped there.
All right,
far down in the hole.
we're gonna move ahead.
Give up while you're.
And we're gonna talk about, let's see,
You sure?
I don't like the font you chose on those slides.
I'm gonna talk about number 4, which was redo, update, and maintain the website. So yes, we've done that. We have the entire inventory on tour with brand-new gorgeous pictures. The website would give you the QR code, announcements, meeting minutes, agendas, and we also have an artist sign-up opportunity, which has been really great because it kind of gives us a feel for who's out in the community, what do they do, and what they might like to do for art in public places. Oops, sorry. I don't know what happened to my, oops, there we go. Number 5 was to rebrand the program. So we did. We went out, we got a new logo, a nice, fresh Art in Public Places logo. We have our new standing sign, brochures, which I brought a few just in case you wanted to see them. And we have a booth set up that really works quite nicely for us now. Number 6, we wanted to create consistent signage because when we went around and looked at all the pieces, everything had a different kind of sign, from a wooden one to a brass one with different names. So we made a consistent design for our sign, and now each piece will have its own. Some had no signs. Will have a sign. Number 7, we really wanted to connect with the community because there, I guess, had been a little bit of a loss of community engagement, I think. So we had participated in many things and had a few things of our own. For example, and I'm afraid to do this, but I'm going to have to. We had some openings with some of our new artwork. So this was in conjunction with Martin Arts, and they had Clyde Butcher one night. He's a very famous photographer, and we had our Gresco sculptures in the gazebo. That was a nice event. And here we have Magnify, which is a whimsical kind of sculpture set that is at the Cummings Library in Palm City. We participated in cultural conversations at Martin Arts. That's for art administrators. We're in the magazine each time it is issued. We have updates, articles, pictures, etc. And we have also been strong supporters of Arts Fest. We were part of the glass blowing when Corning Glass was here. This was in 2021, and you can see that the children were enjoying the art, Commissioner.
Hype.
Here we started work on one of our newer pieces, and as always, we were allowed by Martin County Tourism, who are great supporters of us. They let us piggyback on their award-winning Art and Culture Trail program, and we had some turtles done, and you can see they were hidden around the county at some of our different artworks around to be found. And then I think we went to 2022, and you can see our newest one being completed. Here's our whole new setup. And at that 2022 Arts Fest, we had a naming contest for the new piece of art, and this third grader won the naming contest, which I will let you know in a moment. So the last thing that we wanted to do, number 8, you can all breathe a sigh of relief. He's just doing this. was to acquire new art and grow the program. That now it gets scary again, Commissioner. I'm teasing.
Buckle up, Harold.
I'd like to announce we have 53% more art, more public art in the county in the past 5 years. Our inventory increased from 15 to 23, and I'm going to give you just a real quick little look at some of our new stuff and then some of our future. So this is some of our new things, and this was done in conjunction with the City of Stewart. So we thank the City of Stewart CRA and their CRB and their commissioners and their Public Works Department for helping us to,
So are we voting on
Install
if we're
these.
keeping these or not, or is that what
No,
we're?
these are,
they're there.
are they permanent or temporary? They're on display, right?
Who is cracking up back there? I
Frank,
mean,
back.
this is the most fun item I've ever done, I have to say. No, these are there. They're in Gazebo Park on those cement pads. And they are temporary for as long as we want them to be. We can place them at different places around the county. What I'd really like to do is bring in another set of sculptures to put in here for the next go-round.
Because I always thought that the idea behind those pads was to have George is shaking his head, is to have rotating public art.
Yes, we'd love to.
No, but it has. We've had at least 2 or 3 that I know of. Yeah.
So if you rotate those out, I'll rotate those to Palm City.
Yikes. In your new district or your old district?
No, when what
His
I have left.
backyard.
in the small-
You have to pay for the installations.
I'll pay for
Okay,
the
Susan,
installation.
we're losing the audience here in the background. Although the funny thing is, they're
Somebody's
smiling,
enjoying
but
it.
they're smiling and laughing, which is not typical.
No.
So,
Now
Frank's,
I'm sitting here,
Frank's
that's-
usually got to pay for the entertainment, and now he's here, just
Okay, moving on.
sucking it up.
Then we have this, and she has been named Serenity. She is now hanging in the courtyard at the Blake Library. Really looks beautiful there. Yeah, it's in a really nice spot where the sunlight kind of gets the mosaics all shimmery. It's quite beautiful. And this has also been donated to Art in Public Places. This is the mosaic lily pond at the mansion in Tuckahoe. Has an interesting background. It was actually designed by the Conrad Pichel Studio, and then it was made, or the mosaics were made in Italy, and then it was sent back and installed per
So can I add a little bit
instruction.
more to that?
Sure.
So if you all recall, the square that you see with the pavers around it was the original fountain that was part of Tuckahoe when it was built. The paver bricks, see the paver bricks? They form a square around the circle? No, yeah,
Oh,
those.
over here, yeah.
Those. That was the original footprint of the original lily pond that was in the plaza in back of the house from the 30s when it was built. When we restored the house, we restored it, we actually found the original coquina tiles or whatever they were that were buried in the backyard from the 50s, dug them up, installed them, put them back in. And then what we learned when people were renting it for weddings and functions out back and they were tenting it, that thing was always just physically in the way of anybody doing anything. And so Foam, Friends of Mount Elizabeth, finally came to us and said, look, we have an idea. As much as we wanted to keep it original, what if we did it in mosaic and created the lily pond to represent what was there as part of the original piece of the fabric? And I believe we also ran it through
very
this
beautiful.
state because it was part of our historic preservation of the house. So anyway, and they did donate it and they raised the money and it's a beautiful little piece.
If you
in
don't want to
Jensen
keep it
Beach.
there, we can bring that to Palm City.
Yeah.
Piece by
uh-huh.
piece.
No, thank you. Anyway, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Just one or two other things. We did not get to our budget because somehow that got,
Blended in.
yeah,
There you go.
just wanted to show you that real quick. I think it's important. We have redone the budget so that we kind of did it in 3 parts. So one is our operating, and you can see that there. It's really quite lean. We have a membership in one of the art agencies. We do MTV because, of course, we're a public meeting. That's where we get our administrative funding, and that's usually where we also get our, each year when we do our, losing my words. we go look at our art? Thank you. The next one would be our capital. And you can see that this is not a static budget. This is a budget that moves. So with the 50,000 that we were given each year, 30,500 goes into capital. And you can see that these are the projects that are being done, have been done, and allocated as such. So we also have included engineering, installation, and signage here. And that's what we anticipate that it will cost. And those are, again, estimates. The project budgets are project budgets. So for the 5 sculptures, it was, we spent $3,000 to purchase those. For this piece at the Cummings Library was $30,000 for that commission and installation. We still have money left from the Rio Roundabout. We have a new project, which I'm going to show you. That's our yearly Arts Fest allocation, and I'm not really sure what's going to happen to that.
Probably not much.
I'm sorry?
Probably not much.
And then our third piece is our maintenance budget, and you can see here are all of our pieces and what their budget is, estimated budget is, and that's given to us from artists and from people who have actually done the work before, and at the intervals that we will need to be maintaining that. So I think we have pretty much everything under control. I think everything will stay looking really good all of the time. And then I will just go to the very end. In the works, we have 2 projects in the works. One of them is 8 more bike racks and benches in Rio. So Rio did a creative placemaking program that was not part of Art in Public Places. And a local artist, Mia Lindberg, did those 8 benches and 8 bike racks to reflect some of the fun things that happen in Rio and the, feel of Rio, that kind of thing. So she has been commissioned through the creative placemaking to do 8 more. The reason Art in Public Places is involved is because the community decided to donate those benches to us so that we could maintain them. And we're very lucky in that Ms. Lindberg maintains her artwork for free for the county. So really, that was a great thing for us. So I think they're going to be a lot of fun. And we have a new project for the Manatee Pocket. I don't know if you all recall when those benches were put in and the iron boxes and the gate there. When all of that was done, there was also Manatee sails. And we tried very hard for years to replace those with something like it, but it was not possible. We couldn't get anything that was going to survive wind load. We couldn't attach anything to the bridge, on and on and on. So instead, we had some very interesting artists come in and talk to us about doing stainless steel, and they are actual welders, is a lot of their background, which is very interesting. So they have come up with doing 4 stainless steel pelicans that are going to instead be on top of those boxes. So instead of sails, we will have pelicans. And they should be fairly easy to maintain. They will have all of the engineering done like we do on all the pieces to make sure that they're going to be installed properly, wind load, all of those types of things, and can be removed if they need to be. So just giving you a little peek at what's to come. I would like to thank a few people while I have the opportunity. Again, our local artists who have been so generous with their time, assistance, and guidance. Martin Arts staff, Nancy Turrell and her staff are great. Rob Steele at the Elliott Museum. Of course, county departments, tourism, general services, and parks have been amazing, helping us to move the program along and do things in the field that we would not be able to do ourselves. My NAC and CRA board members and 2 staff members, Jana Cox and Naomi Felix, who have been hands-on on this program. And I'm happy to take any
I
questions.
feel like you're winning an award or something. Are you winning an award?
It's my opportunity. I only come talk about this every 3 years.
Thank Okay, so with all of that, and
I heard that.
First and foremost,
I'm sorry.
thank you. Regardless of the comments and the conversation, I think, from where we started in this program to where we are today is really kind of cool. There's a lot of pieces out there that elsewise would not have happened.
53% more.
53% more. There's actually more that aren't on the list that I will get with Susan to make sure that we add to the list, because there's a whole bunch more out there. So it's more probably like 58 or 60%.
Could be.
So you would have wanted to, prior to the prior conversation, would have wanted to come out with a motion, I would imagine, to have added something relative to our mural, to your mural program.
Yes, so I'll read my motion to you and
But
then you can.
modify it as accordingly, but I think what we would need to do is to have a motion to approve the proposed 2022-23 art and public program budget, and do you want to, I'll leave it up to you guys to decide if you want to like make a comment about the murals, to cease any further conversation on that, or give direction otherwise. Commissioner Campy.
I would make a motion for staff's recommendation based on the fact that Ms. Corrs showed a couple of examples, just literally as examples, not necessarily murals that would happen here. Probably in hindsight, those mural suggestions were probably too provocative. But the concept of having murals and having a small $7,500 mechanism in place, there is, what was lost in translation, I believe, was there is a process. It's not like someone can come in, collect $7,500, go and paint a mural, and then the rest of us would say we didn't like it. There's a board of individuals that would look at it. It's got to get through that process. It's got to originally go through Ms. Corrs and her team in the office before it ever gets to the CRA board. Then the CRA board will decide, and it'll come here. I think there are a million murals. I mean, if you've ever been, actually, Hobe Sound has done a remarkable job with murals. I'm envious of what they have there. And Lake Placid, Florida, that draws a huge tourism. I had been through there by accident, and I didn't know it was a mural community, but there were so many beautiful murals that I have told many people that are out driving around looking for something to do, go to Lake Placid, look at all their beautiful murals. So I know we sort of half kid around here this afternoon, but I think it's, in my opinion, I think it's important that we leave it in place and let the system work its way out. If there's a mural that comes forward that we don't like, then we can make our opinions known at the time. But to kill the entire program because we didn't like the 4 examples it's short-sighted.
Okay, we have a partial motion.
No, that was a whole motion,
It's a
wasn't
whole
it?
motion.
Second.
Well, no, I mean, partial meaning that we didn't have a second to say we had a complete motion. Now we have a complete motion. Okay, anybody from the public? Frank, you want to weigh in on this? I can't wait. You've been patiently pacing out back.
3 minutes out. Non-verbal.
And when you have time, Frank, if you could put in your public speaking form when you're done, that would be most helpful. Michael, I fully expect you're coming up next. Go ahead.
Full disclosure, I'm not an artsy type of guy. The big picture to me is it seems like humans are just doing a very feeble job of competing with God, because that's my art when I look around. And yeah, the humans are lagging way behind. So that's just my background in art. And for instance, a Florida state tree, a big, full, beautiful sable with those brown limbs hanging down, and this big, huge shade tree. Before it gets butchered, that's art, okay? Now, I think I do a pretty good job of seeing things from 30,000 feet, seeing the forest before we get into the trees type of thing. And what got me going was the stark difference. There's a stark difference between if we're going to pay for it, if we're going to have tax dollars going into this. I like what I've seen so far in Martin County. Things that describe who we are as a community, the things like at the beach. Harold, on your building is beautiful. I think it's a train scene or something. I forget what it is.
Highwoman.
But things that say, hey, here's who we are as a county, all right, but just random haphazard pop art And again, if someone owns a building and wants to put anything they want on it, that's one thing. But if we're going to put our opinion on it, I would hope we stay the course and just keep doing what we've been doing as far as the public art, which kind of paints a picture of who we are as a community. All right, thank you for that.
Michael?
Well, I actually stuck around to speak about the next agenda item, but I've really enjoyed.
All day just for this one.
No, not sharing the apathy across the board. Actually, in January, I'm going to celebrate my 10-year wedding anniversary. My wife and I have been together 19 years in November. We're very fortunate to get married actually at the Stewart Gazebo. And as much as those art pieces may not speak to me particularly, I like landscape photography and good old-fashioned Americana from Rockwell. But nevertheless, whenever I drive by and see those pieces, it's nice to see that our community puts some value into that. And we give a location for our residents to have a nice, peaceful place to reflect, or in my case, get married. I like the wind chime one, not exactly the red one in the center, but nevertheless, it's nice to see that there's a program in our community.
That's great. So.
May I add one more comment, sir?
Before you do. I think Ms. Corrs, I think what Michael and Frank just said, I think is, so Martin County has a brand, Stewart has a brand. Michael just kind of emphasized by saying, I got married there, and forevermore he will have an image in his mind, his family's mind, as to that was a special place that if you had to take the iconic things in Stewart that you wished would never go away, that'd probably be one of them, you know? And so I think, Susan, as long as that stays, and I don't know how you capture that in language or in something, but the guidance that you give or we give to the public art, public places, I think if you summed it up from what Frank and Michael just said, I think would help guide them to say, don't do something that is a big statement piece that someone's trying to like provoke,
So, just very quickly, there are other things that go to that short mission sentence, and one of them was to reflect the aesthetics and the spirit of the community. So I think that's where we're going to stay. We'll stay in that lane.
Commissioner Campy?
Thank you. I think what happened this afternoon is exactly what art is supposed to do. It got us talking, sharing our different opinions, and just bringing on a communication. So good for you.
You okay down there? I'm out. You're out. Okay, you don't have to vote for it. Okay, so we have a motion. We have a second by Commissioner Hurd. Any further discussion on the motion? Anybody else from the public? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All is opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 4-1 with
The
Commissioner
guy with the mural on
Jenkins.
his building.
Hey, you just wait till something comes before us, and now we're in a lawsuit because our opinion doesn't matter, and yeah.
Is there a new mosaic at the golf course?
Not to my knowledge.
Not yet. There might be.
Good answer, not yet.
I believe there's
Sign.
something.
Not up?
I believe there's something coming.
On the sign,
Signage.
there's supposed to be
Mosaic.
mosaic,
The logo.
the logo
Yeah.
of the sign on that right side where the big wall. That's where that mosaic will go.
Well, I'm going to say thank you, and
Depart.
been fun.
I'm going
Come
to,
see us next time ahead of time, just to get a flavor of what's going to happen. Okay? Ms. Donaldson, you register that one? Yes. Okay, next item on the,
Come on.
I know, well,
Leave the new kid alone.
that started the first hour, you said. Right? Item number 4, Department 4, 2022 Legislative Final Session Report. Mr. Kennedy, I think you're out there somewhere. And we have a special guest with us today. Wow. Wowee. Gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm guessing yours will not be anywhere near as much fun as that prior,
We'll try and make
or as colorful. Let's put it that way.
definitely not.
That's the last one.
James Kennedy, Legislative Affairs. With me, I have Matt Forrest from Ballard Partners. If any questions that I can't answer, if there are any, he's here for that.
This year, state session took place from January 11th to March 14th. Smaller session. There were about 3,735 bills that were introduced. 1,700 of those were appropriation projects, with 285 bills being enrolled, which is a little below the norm, which is around 310, 320 or so. There were 2 special sessions as well in the middle of April and also in the middle of May. Want to touch on some of the budget highlights very quickly here. So the budget that was passed this year by the governor was $109.9 billion, which was the largest in the history of the state of Florida. Attached to that also is a record number of a veto amount of $3.1 billion, which was passed about 6 weeks ago. Going to the 7J's septic to sewer project, that was one of 3 items that the board that we submitted. This did get through, and I would also like to thank the Senator Garrell Harrell, for helping us with this project. The next 2 slides also in detail will explain exactly what this project is about. Also included is $500 million of Everglades restoration. In that $500 million, $202 million was for SERP, which is the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, and also $100 million for the State Fiscal Recovery Fund, which is designed to achieve reduction in harmful discharges in the St. Lucie and Caloosahatchee estuaries. Moving down, for the Florida Forever program, there was $468.7 million in the state budget. This funding is used for land acquisition of conservation and recreational lands, with the priority to protect local water resources. Moving down, there was $50 million to the Visit Florida program, which is going to help our tourism department here in Martin County. We generally get about $1 million or so of that to help with local restaurants, businesses, also our beaches and parks. There were $515 million to the Resilient Florida program, which helps with protecting the beaches and surrounding sea level rise. This is the 7J's septic to sewer conversion project. At the moment, we have not broken ground. I just wanted to put some pictures there for the public to see exactly what will eventually take place. It will be something similar to that. And the idea, when we will break ground, my understanding is once we receive the $2 million, we will start on that project. So getting into the details of the 7J's, so we received $2 million, stated previously. This is about 22 commercial properties that will be serviced. This is in the western side of Palm City. This will enhance water quality by the removal of 235 pounds of phosphorus annually. Also reduces the potential effects of harmful algae blooms in the St. Lucie and the Indian River Lagoon. Reduces the risk of contaminated drinking water and supports our Connect to Protect initiative. A big item that was passed this year was the tax package. It was House Bill 7071 this year. One of the biggest ticket items of that was a October gas tax holiday that the executive branch put together. Included in that is $200 million in general revenue, which will essentially pay for this. And then part of that, the deduction rate, as you can see there, total is 25.3 cents. In total, 1 cent will be off of the county fuel tax, and then there was approximately $8 million that was appropriated to offset that. So included in the tax package were some of these sales tax holidays, which I think will be very beneficial to Martin County residents and also Floridians in total. Some of these have already passed. I will highlight some that we can still take advantage of right now. A big one is the back-to-school tax holiday, which has been reoccurring. This is not a new item. And some of the things that are included in that will be clothing, footwear, wallets, bags, as long as they're under $100. And then school supplies under $50. Then any learning aids like flashcards, memory games, under $30. Also included any computer accessories. Any computers at all under $1,500 will be tax exempt from the month of July 25th to August 7th, so that 2-week period. A new program is the sales tax removal on diapers and baby clothes. This will save taxpayers about $120 million in that fiscal year, from fiscal year 22 to 23. Going down, the children's book sales, also a new tax removal. This will save approximately $3.3 million to taxpayers from the months of May 14th to August 14th. The skilled worker tools sales tax holiday will save $12.4 million. This will include things such as hand tools, power tools, work gloves, safety glasses. A really big item is the impact-resistant windows, doors, and garage doors, which will be about $463 million in savings for a 2-year fiscal year period. As you know, in Florida, we do get hit with hurricanes quite a bit. On average, it's almost 50% that Florida will get hit at least once a year by a hurricane. So something that the legislature thought was important was putting this for citizens for $463 million in savings. Last item, don't want to go through, no need to go through all of them, but sales tax exemption on certain fencing material. That will be for hog wire, barbed fencing, including gates and materials for agriculture production or ag lands. So for Martin County, we were successful 1 out of 3 for our ask. We did get the $2 million. However, there were 2 projects that were vetoed, which was the Cypress Creek Restoration Project and the Martin County Reach Center Project. And would like to thank both Representative Overdorf and Representative Snyder for getting those into the budget. However, we will try and get both of these projects funded through what's called the Local Support Grant Program. This year is the first year that the legislature has opened this program up. There will be $175 million for local governments and school entities for this, and we should have an answer around September. For the historical preservation grant, we did receive about $115,000 for Gilbert's Bar House or Refuge for a replacement of the roof. For fiscal year 24, we are also going after for the House of Refuge for windows and doors as well. We received, or overall the state, we received $30 million for Small County Outreach Program, which will be about $2 million or so to us, which will be for resurfacing of roads. Real quick, talking about natural resources and water quality accomplishments. Like I stated before, there were $202 million for SERP, which is helping to restore, preserve, and protect the South Florida ecosystem while providing for other water-related needs of the region, including water supply and flood protection. Also was a wastewater grant program, which provides funds for wastewater grants, helps communities across Florida reduce excess nutrient pollution within a basin management action plan. Also, at the bottom there, there was a Senate Bill 494, which is a derelict vessel removal program. The Florida Fish and Wildlife will provide grants. The total is $19 million to local governments to help with the backlog of derelict vessels. And this is the last page. I know of the board is aware of Senate Bill 518, the tree trimming and removal, which was passed and signed this year. So don't need to go too much into that, but I know we are trying to work on a local ordinance. We talked about Visit Florida receiving $50 million. This year there was Senate Bill 434, which extended that to October 1st, 2028. A very big bill, Senate Bill 788, the Hometown Hero Housing Program. This was something that the governor did push across. This helps frontline workers such as law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, active military, and veterans to purchase a home with down payment assistance. Also would like to thank Representative Overdorf on House Bill 615. This requires the statewide Council on Human Trafficking to assess what social media platforms that are used to facilitate human trafficking within Florida and establishes a process to detect such use and make recommendations on how to prevent social media platforms from being used for such purposes. Senate Bill 620 was something that was just vetoed by the governor about 2 weeks ago. This bill did allow for profit businesses that were affected by any local ordinance, such as county, city government, that put in a ordinance that caused a reduction of at least 15% of that business profit as applied on a per location basis of a business operated within the jurisdiction. So for example, required bar closures, like the city of Miami, they have a 4 a.m. stop time. So if they were able to, or they were to choose to do 2 a.m., you know, there can be an argument there from businesses that there was a reduction there. And also noise ordinance as well. And then House Bill 7049, this was a multi-year fight for the legislature. So this bill is going to allow local governments that have the capabilities to no longer be required to post a legal notice on newspapers. So now we can post the notice directly on the county website for individuals to look at. And if there are any questions, myself and Matt Forrest will be happy to answer any or comments.
Commissioner Hurd?
Yes. The grant opportunities, Cypress Creek Floodplain Restoration Project, $750,000. Martin County Reach Center, $750,000. Resilient Florida Program totaling $515 million, and Coral Reef Protection and Restoration Program, $11 million. Were those ever appropriated, or were they vetoed by the governor?
So those first two items that you mentioned, those were vetoed by the governor, and we are continuing to try and go after those funds through that local support grant. And then the other items, the resilience and coral reef, those were appropriated.
Those were appropriated?
To the state. That's not to us specifically. That's overall.
But they're in parentheses, which tells me it's a reduction.
I think it was a reduction from last year's funding for Coral.
Explain the parentheses behind each one of the projects.
Oh, sorry. Sorry for the confusion. Yes, those specific 5 programs under the Resilient Florida program were funded from last fiscal year. The reason I put them in is just to kind of highlight the ideas of what projects go through that specific program. But for Martin County specifically, for fiscal year 22-23, no, we do not have any funded projects.
Okay, so these were $515 million were funded last year and 0 this year.
The 515 is for 2022, 2023, but the grant process has not opened up yet, is my understanding.
Thanks.
Anybody else? More of a general comment on Coral, and our appreciation goes to the legislature and to the governor for the funding that they are doing, which is significantly more than it's been in the past and years ago. And we had a very successful trip to DC a couple weeks back, specifically on Coral, and getting hopefully the federal side of all this to reauthorize the old Coral Reef Act from 2000. And to really generalize the conversation, we were this close last year, and December kind of came and went and gone, and we missed out on getting it approved last year. But there seems to be a significant level of confidence that we will either get a standalone bill passed this year for Coral, or it'll be as part of an omnibus bill, and that's my term, not their term, for a whole bunch of other things on the House side in DC that are combined into one massive bill. Pieces of that will probably happen, pieces probably won't, and our message to our delegation, which is incredibly supportive, we have a unanimous level of support for Coral in Florida, which is fantastic and very rarely ever happens. And so we think we're that close to getting that reauthorization done. Matt, welcome. Anything you'd like to chime in on and add?
No, just I'd like to introduce myself if you haven't met me yet. I'm Matt Forrest. So Ballard Partners obviously is not a new name to you. We've been a long-time legislative consulting firm for the county. Carol Bracey is probably the name and face you're more familiar with. Carol is taking a leave of absence from the firm. Take care of some personal family matters. I live in West Palm Beach, so I was tapped to kind of fill in. I also do a lot of local government stuff, so as much as I wasn't your front person the day-to-day, if you've been to Tallahassee, you probably saw me. Carol and I kind of shared a lot of things, so you'll be seeing me more often. And also, if you take advantage of the fact that I'm just a little ways down the road and more than happy to come up and have lunch individually or coffee or something like that and chat with you more. I'd also just like to say you guys are doing a fantastic job in terms of advocating at the federal and state level from a local government standpoint. I'm a big sports fan, and so I always think of this as baseball, and you guys are, you know, the batting average is high. You're going to have some losses. You're going to go to the plate a few times and strike out. But you guys have a very, very well-rounded, robust appropriations and legislative plan, and you've put the staff resources into doing it. It's great that you have member projects that you're filing, but also looking at every single grant opportunity you can possibly pull down. And with that, you're going to have consistent success over time. So I think you guys are doing a great job from a staff standpoint and from your ideas of prioritizing projects.
It also,
I like him. He can come back more often.
it also
come once a week.
It also doesn't hurt that we have one of the best lobby teams in the state of Florida and now joining us in DC. So how many years? 21 years we've been with Ballard?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been with the firm since 2007, and you predate me, which is not very many clients that do that. And so it's a pleasure to take on a legacy client, if you will.
And we understand that, you know, Carol's got her things that she needs to do, but Carol has always been a huge piece of this puzzle for us. And so we certainly wish her our best wishes through her issues that she's dealing with.
Mr. Donaldson has a
Mr.
question.
Donaldson, I'm sorry, I didn't see your, it's hiding over there.
I don't know if you're...
Look at that, Taryn.
There we go. Yes, Russell with the microphone. I just want to say, this last session, John Mayle did a lot of work in filling in here, and I would continue to see him do that. And of course, James came to us new this year, so a lot of picking up. And of course, with Carol stepping out, she was still helping us a little bit, in that transition, but significant. We still have a great team, and just wanted to also make sure that John was recognized and know that you're going to be tapped again, buddy.
Well, and I think to tag on, just to add on to that a little bit, I think in many cases, and it's not always great to single somebody out, but John was also asked to do things probably out of his normal comfort zone that were not exactly in what I would say were probably in his wheelhouse, if you will. And we are very fortunate to have all of our staff, and John did a fantastic job getting us through a transition period. So kudos to the whole team. Anything else y'all want to share with us? Anything exciting coming up this year that we need to be aware of, that we know on the radar screen so far?
If I could just give you a little timeline, these sessions also have a quick and a wait kind of season now. We are now in the full election mode, as you can imagine. So, going up to the primary election here in August and the general election in November, things won't ratchet it back up again in Tallahassee till after the start of the year. So, unlike the previous session where it felt like you just got done and now it's time to get back going again, it's going to be a little slow. So, you do have time to be looking around your own districts, thinking of projects, thinking of ideas, keeping your ear to the ground in terms of legislation and things like that. It's also a brand new legislature when we go back in November. So everything starts over, clean slate, new Speaker of the House, new Senate President, all new committee chairs, new legislative priorities. So it's very much a clean slate. So the election will happen in November. There'll be an organizational session as well in November, but you won't start to see bills filed until December and January. It's very much, I always think of it like the start of a school year. Those first few committee weeks are a lot of syllabus instruction. January, February, you'll start to see a lot of committee meetings and things ratchet up. And then the session, of course, doesn't start until March. So it'll be a little slow. So don't feel like you haven't heard from us in a little while. There's just not a lot to report. Everything's in the election mode. But starting at the end of this year and early into next year is when you'll start seeing bills, and we'll be filing appropriations work and things like that.
I would add this too, to that. The week and a half ago, we had the incoming speaker as our keynote speaker at one of our lunch meetings at FAC. It was, I thought, from what I heard him say and his approach, one of the better speeches I've heard in a long time relative to things that are important to Martin County. I mean, he didn't call us out and saying this speech is all about Martin County, but things relative to what he said and how he said them in his speech, I think were good for us. I think it's certainly in the right direction from the speaker's side. And I would also say this, it's something we've been working on for the last 3-4 years, a water policy discussion and how that water policy is looked at the state level, and can we get it to be a policy direction and format that very much mirrors FDOT's format and funding and structure. He said that in his comments, and we knew that ahead. I didn't know he was going to do that ahead of time, but I know commissioners that know him very well and have had that conversation with him. But he has much said exactly that verbatim, that we need a water policy and a structure that very much mirrors the structure that FDOT uses and funds, and the advocacy and everything that's involved in FDOT's strategy, because FDOT had $14 billion this year in their budget. It was a record number for them. Unprecedented amounts of money and dollars, and rightfully so at 1,000 people a day coming into Florida to keep up with that. But nonetheless, they're committed and they're sticking to that plan, and there's a reason for that. The structure that is the backbone, if you will, of the FDOT infrastructure is the advocacy, is the structure that keeps all that moving forward. And that's what water needs, and that's what we have talked about at FAC, and we again adopted this year as one of our significant priorities for the Association of Counties, a water policy program that starts to address water in such a way that all things water get the same kind of attention, the same kind of focus, and certainly nudges us in the direction of what FDOT gets for funding. If we had anywhere near close to the amount of money that FDOT gets in funding, we would be light years ahead of our water quality problems in Florida. And so that seems to be very much a cornerstone of his platform, which is great to hear. We thought it might happen last year, but I think everybody agreed that this coming new session and new leadership really wanted to kind of make that a cornerstone of their priority program. And so we'll be working very closely with all of them to make sure that we can get that done this year. And if we can, honestly, for Martin County selfishly, but if we can pull that off at a state level, Florida will be significantly in a much better place in the long term, I think, water-wise.
We could
So-
complete all of SERP with 1 year of FDOT's funding.
Well, you could. The real number for all water issues related that we get, and his name's escaped me right this second, who does the presentations, Frank Bernardino.
Oh, yes.
When Frank does it, is like 200 billion, something like that. Is some crazy amount of money to fix everything that are our problems. But over a long period of time, if you're putting 10 billion a year into it, it wouldn't take too long to start really aggressively. And this governor has done a great job plowing money into our water issues, but it takes a whole lot more. So, Matt, welcome to the team, at least working with us now more directly. Send our love to Ms. Carroll. Anything else you guys want to share with us?
I
Awesome.
think that'll be it.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks. Thanks, John.
Okay, last item, I think, on our agenda today. Update on St. Lucie Inlet Management Plan projects. Ms. Fitzpatrick, I don't see Ms. Fitzpatrick. You don't look like Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Nope.
How are you?
Good. How are you? Afternoon. Jessica Garland, Coastal Project Manager for Public Works Coastal Division. I am here today to give a brief update on the aspects of the St. Lucie Inlet management. There are three main elements to maintaining the St. Lucie Inlet. We have the North Jetty, the South Jetty, and the impoundment basin. The North Jetty protects, the North Jetty and the South Jetty stabilize the shoreline and protect navigation, while the impoundment basin captures sand coming into the federal channel and prevent it from shoaling. In 2020, the St. Lucie Inlet State Park project manager came to the county with a request for sand placement on their beaches immediately south of the inlet. Unlike the previous projects that have required sand to be pumped 3 to 5 miles south of the inlet, this project was much simpler. In February of 2022, the commission awarded a contract to Weeks Marine for the removal of up to 475,000 cubic yards for placement within the state park. Weeks Marine arrived in February of 2022 and began pumping in by March 20th, 2022. By the end of April, they had removed 445,000 cubic yards and had placed it all within the state park. This project was funded 50% by DEP and the county, and regular maintenance will occur within the inlet every 2.5 to 3 years, depending on material placement. This image shown here is the inlet prior to the dredging of the inlet in February, and as you can see, the red color is dry sand above the water, and the yellow in the inlet, the yellow color in the federal channel is shoaling that was occurring. This is a survey that occurred immediately after dredging of the inlet in May of 2022. And as you can see, the majority of the red color that was in the previous image is now gone, and the blue is an estimated 18 feet depth. On the funding side of the inlet management, last year Congress reinstated a process that used to be known as earmarks, allowing the Congress to request funding for a limited number of projects. Congressman Mast included the St. Lucie Inlet in his request for the local projects. With his request, Congress allocated $5.75 million for dredging maintenance in the inlet. And even though this funding was not available to cover in time for the project in 2022, we're working together with our partners in Jacksonville to make sure this money is retained for the 2024 summer event. In addition to the community funding that Congressman Mast requested on our behalf, an additional $1.2 million has been added to the Army Corps' work plan for the St. Lucie Inlet. Now that we've taken care of the navigation in the St. Lucie Inlet and impoundment basin, it's time to focus on the South Jetty repair. The jetty is very important. It stabilizes the south shoreline, which would continue to erode and widen the inlet even further. It protects the navigation channel from waves coming from the south and can slowly return the sand back into the inlet. The jetty was originally constructed in 1982 by the Army Corps of Engineers. It was constructed in an elevation of 8 feet, as shown in this drawing. It had steep slopes and used large armor stones. In 2019, we hired a coastal engineering consulting firm, Aptum, to perform extensive surveys and jetties using laser surveys and drone photography to assess the problem areas. Key observations were seen, and a large breach is present on the seaward end inside this red circle. 85% of the jetty is below the design elevation, which was 8 feet, and 60% of the remaining armor stone is undersized for our wave climate in the St. Lucie Inlet. The asphalt maintenance road that sat atop the jetty has deteriorated or disappeared altogether, and the slight side slopes have flattened all the way around. Here's another view of the conditions from that LiDAR surveys. The hot colors, red, indicate the highest elevations of stone out on the jetty, which max out at 8 feet. The blue tones show the lower elevations, which are roughly 1 feet. This clearly shows the structure and the elevations have changed and the armor stone has spread. Here are current condition pictures of the jetty and how severe the changes have become out there. We've been working with our core project management team in Jacksonville to develop options and recommendations and actions. The current county estimate is just over $6 million for the structure, and this also accounts for sea level rise for the next 50 years. The project is eligible for up to 100% federal funding and is also one of Congressman Mast's requests in last year's funding of $4.7 million. In the FY23 President's budget, there's also a line item of $5.75 million for overall St. Lucie Inlet maintenance. We believe these funds can also assist in the payment for the jetty repairs. If there's any questions.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I'm just curious. If the first jetty, the South Jetty, was built in 1982 and it was at 8 feet with sea level rise, was it calculated that 9 feet is good for another 40 years?
I will have to check into that with the consultants, but it was estimated at 8 feet. So we do not have firm as-built from the Army Corps either, so they're looking for them.
Do we know what they estimate the sea level rise is going to be over the next 50 years?
It's 3.5 feet, I believe.
So it's
From our report, I would.
9 feet doesn't seem
I don't have it right on hand.
I'm just curious about whether or not we're designing this to current standards.
But Jim Gordon's.
We've designed
jumped
it
into
to
this.
our report, but Jim can.
Yep, Jim Gordon, Public Works Director. Yes, so the consultant that we have that's designing it right now, they are looking at sea level rise. They're looking at the intermediate high scenario. And they did propose elevation 9, but a much wider footprint so that it will withstand the wave action that caused the other one to fail. So the design didn't fail because it wasn't high enough. It failed because the footprint wasn't wide enough.
But in the future, it may be, the limiting factor may be height rather than wave.
It could, but from a normal sea level rise
standpoint, even 3.5 feet is well below elevation 9. It would be the wave events from hurricanes and things like that that would be in question.
Okay.
But
Thanks.
certainly we are engaged with the consultant, and that was a task order as part of the design, is to take that into account.
Thanks.
I think the best part of this presentation that has taken us 20 years to get through a series of fixes and changes to where we are today. The impoundment basement was a huge step forward, and that was, I think, when Don was in a former life job back then. Fixing the North Jetty and dealing with the weir out there was another component of it. Again, the impoundment basement was a huge piece of this that has afforded us the ability not to have to dredge quite as often, but also capture all that sand and use it really economically, which is what we just did. So this South Jetty is really just the next phase of a 25-year plan that is finally coming to an end. So great stuff. Good work. Do you need anything from us or just presentation?
Just accept the presentation.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Unless there's any other questions.
You did a very good job.
We're at the end of our meeting. Is there anybody from the public that would like to address us at 5:05? Frank, you're in the back. Mike, you're still here. I'm guessing it's not on public art.
Remember the hookers in the below?
What?
Thank you for the time. This morning's discussion amongst the commissioners during commissioner comments was quite interesting. I guess, though, I missed the first part, but I'm guessing the whole topic was affordable housing. I learned a couple things. So not only did the city of Stewart annex land and build these 4-story projects that people just absolutely hate, but they, under the guise of it being affordable, they're really not. But it gets worse, as Commissioner Heatherington said, they actually changed the market and made it even more expensive for the existing older, say, your individual guys that have rentals. So it's even more disastrous than I thought. And also, Commissioner Hurd mentioned, haven't thought about it, but the problems you've had in the past when you take commercial and industrial land and downzone it like they did to high-density residential, the long-term effects of the complaints you get of mixing those two zoning things together. So that was interesting. I had a chance in April and May to get out amongst the public, knocking on doors. Just for all those in TV land out there, don't hold it against the citizens of the city of Stewart. My personal polling is basically 90% of the people I talk to are disgusted and disappointed with the leadership that we've had in our city for the past 4 years. And we're hoping the last 2 years are just an abomination and never happen again. So hopefully those people that I've talked to, and I'm guessing that's a good piece of the pie of the people that live in Stewart, maybe they'll get out and show their disgust in August. Thank you.
Mr. Circus, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to quickly touch on department item number 4, the legislative update. Specifically, one of the legislative priorities the county had brought to Tallahassee, HB 105, which is regulation of smoking for counties and municipalities. I know this one pretty intimately. I'm very blessed and fortunate to be able to work on a team of highly informed and highly energized advocates in Tallahassee, as well as at the local and state level regarding tobacco regulations. The reason why I come in front of you today is some of you probably recall in August of 2020, the county put forward a tobacco regulation ordinance. I was extremely impressed with then Chair Ms. Heatherington, as well as the county attorney's staff, how quickly they were receptive to some of the concerns that we had as tobacco enthusiasts in the county. We made multiple changes to that ordinance prior to it going in front of you again in November of 2020, at which time it was ultimately passed. About 6 months later, because of existing preemption issues with the state, it had to be rescinded. 2 out of 5 of you guys had spearheaded efforts to have tobacco regulation here at the county level, and obviously on the presentation, it's still a priority within the county. So I come in front of you today as a tobacco consumer and with 25,000 other Martin County residents who enjoy tobacco consumption. What we want to do is offer ourselves to you to be a resource that we recognize the new role the counties are going to have for tobacco regulation, and we want to come to the table to be able to present our side of the argument to make sure that you can achieve what this regulation change is intended to do, while simultaneously not taking away from the rights of the citizens of the county to enjoy lands that our taxes finance. So we open ourselves up as a resource. I look forward to working with you guys in the future on this, and hopefully we make something work for everybody. Thank you.
Sir. Commissioner Jenkins, any final comments for the day? No. Sure.
Other than he could have said that this morning and not had to sit here all day, but that's.
Commissioner Heatherington?
I'm all set. Thanks.
Commissioner Campy?
I just wanted to offer a cautionary note. I know this morning when we were discussing affordable housing and things like that, and there are opinions on what's happening in the county and what's happening in the city, I just want to continue to maintain a spirit of collaboration with our colleagues in the city. I know that some of us have opinions on different projects or universally all of the projects, but I want to be careful, at least from my own perspective, that when we offer up opinions or our determinations of what we think is happening there, I'm leery. I've watched some of their meetings, just like I wouldn't want someone to necessarily put what we're doing here without having a more broad understanding of what the vision was. I don't know if originally their intent, some of those projects were not meant to be affordable and weren't. I don't know if they alter the market. I guess any kind of inventory in a supply and demand situation could change, pricing. I think some of their areas, when Commissioner Hurd was mentioning about if we don't have compatibility amongst, different housing types, part of what we were discussing was the fact that not about building something next to an existing residential neighborhood. If you're in Sands Industrial Park and you're building some residential type housing, the people that would go into that residential type of housing understand that they're renting or, living in an industrial park. Some people would find the advantage of a very short commute or a clean, reasonably priced place to live as an advantage. So I just want to be careful. We had a gentleman speak just now. It's his personal opinion. But I don't want to further exasperate any problems or issues that we're having with our colleagues with the city. I want them to understand, at least from my perspective, I get it's not an easy situation there. A lot of those decisions passed 5-0 through their professional staff and things like that. So I personally wanted to be clear that I don't want to pile on a beat down of the city. Thank you.
Commissioner Hurd?
I'm good.
Guess I'll leave that one alone. I'm good. I have to think about your name for a second. It's not Taryn anymore. It's Mr. Donaldson.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Your mic still. Guess what? That'll get worked on this week for you, I'm sure.
Well, exactly. I need it automated. But yes, Commissioners, I did want to give you an update at an item that has come before you before and ask you to consider an issue regarding the medical examiners, and some of this information came to me at lunch today. So the issue has been that the medical examiners building and our representatives want to submit to a local support grant looking for a 50% match. And at this time, Okeechobee County today agreed they are providing their $140,000 match. Indian River is providing a match. St. Lucie is county to match. And based upon discussions on the board at your last meeting, that you were looking for the state to provide 100% of the funding for the project if possible, or that was the direction. So at this time, the only eligibility is I also talked to a retired senator regarding the local support grant, and as I understand it, that they're only looking for projects that have a match. So I think the St. Lucie County is the one who's been putting together the grant requests. Are actually under Representative Trabolsi's staff are actually going to be submitting the grant request, and the project is for the design of the medical examiner's building. The overall design has not been established in terms of square footage. I've talked to Jason Brown with Indian River County and also with Howard Tipton and St. Lucie, and expressed that in no way has Morgan County determined a size that's appropriate and would not agree to a project until we understood that the project was only designed to serve the needs of the medical examiner and no more. So anyway, I felt it incumbent on to bring this up. I know in many of your all's mind it was already a settled issue, but I did feel that given the what's pressing this is they are looking to submit this application tomorrow, and so there is an additional time to work on it. So really, it comes down to we either leave the subject matter as previously decided or authorize your administrator to sign the grant application. However, like we've done with other grants, it still has to come back to the board for an award. And so we could, obviously it requires a board action to accept the award should it be granted. Again, this does not commit us to funding the construction of any said project, which would require an interlocal with all entities, and we'd all have to agree on the square footage and actually the size of the building. So that's the amount that the county would be on if our 50% is $220,000. Okeechobee is pledged $141. Indian River's over 200, and St. Lucie is over their proportionate share is over 400,000. So that's it in a nutshell. So it's simply whether or not you would authorize your administrator to approve Dana Trabolsi submitting the grant with a Martin County match not to exceed 220, but with the award requiring board approval when it comes back.
Mr. Campy.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure that Mr. Donaldson has spoken to all of us about that. This issue, I remember when we discussed it last time, and when it becomes a priority of members of our delegation, I think it's important that we show our support, because we just had Mr. Kennedy here discussing his appreciation on our behalf for issues that the representatives and the senator brought forward to bring money back from Tallahassee to us. I think they should look to us and expect from us that same level of support when Representative Trabolsi, she's rep, right?
Yes.
Yeah, if she's trying to lead the charge for us, I think we should all rally to show her our support. And now that every other county in the Treasure Coast has come on board, even though we're getting on board late, I think it's important that we do. I'd make a motion to allow Mr. Donaldson to represent us in those negotiations and grant application opportunities in a dollar amount not to exceed $225,000.
Second. Commissioner Hurd, we have a second.
Yeah, what portion of construction is design? What percentage? So we're looking at, if this is our portion of design, then we can expect to pay $2 million toward the cost of the construction?
Yep.
That's correct. In the current,
Man.
if it were to be, if and when it's constructed, the only other option is to reconstruct what's there, but the college has not supported that. They're looking to provide a new site to build the
Of course they are.
facility. We all share in the cost of the operation of the facility, and that's so we're roughly 22% of the total operation with the others distributed in accordance with the usage. You're right. So the issue is, and that's what was discussed in our joint meeting, was when it would be constructed. In my conversations, that I thought that it would be at its soonest, it would be 3 years, and more likely, a typical project like this would take 5 years to develop. I know the medical examiner would like it built next year, but
But there is an existing site. They're in a site now. They have an agreement. It's funded, and the agreement doesn't expire for another 6, 7 years?
That's correct. I don't remember the exact termination date of the agreement, but the issue is that the facility is in poor condition and needs. I don't think anybody's denying the condition of the facility at this point in time, that it needs to be rebuilt or replaced. The funding for this that's being requested by the other through this local support grant would be strictly for the design and also go through the process of determining the square footage needs of the medical examiner with the population as it is today with some future growth.
And whose idea was it to change the funding from the state to the counties?
So in our research, we did not find any evidence that the medical examiner's building here or elsewhere has been funded by the state. I know that's been certainly a premise. The work that was done for this facility back in the 70s, there was a discussion much like we're having today. The college offered up the building in the 1970s, and that sort of settled the issue. The other buildings, the medical examiners, James Kennedy, did some additional research and have not found any medical examiners buildings that have been built that were funded by the state. Only recently has there been some grant applications for the state to help fund the medical examiners buildings. So there, for Indian River County, and talking to James or Mr. Brown, that they have concluded, they were like us, thinking that it was solely a state responsibility. They have determined that it is a regional responsibility in terms of our commitment, but they feel that it is due to the nature of the project, should be jointly funded by the state. And so they have prepared in their budget to fund both the study and future construction. Okeechobee has also allocated funds for the study and future construction. I'm not suggesting that we allocate the funds today for future construction, but simply authorize us to go to the next step, which is work with them on the design and determine through that design process to ensure that only the size of the building that's necessary for the medical examiner is designed for.
Commissioner Heatherington?
I was just gonna, you mentioned just some of my thoughts, that if I sat in that Tri-County meeting a while back and watched the medical examiner, and this is going back a year ago, display this very grandiose vision of what she wants the medical examiner's office to be, that to me, I'm not committing our taxpayers to do that. It was a very grandiose vision, and I think that we should be responsible for what our residents need. Yes, it is an aging building, and there's some dignity, the issues with that, but there's no way I could commit taxpayers to her vision, and I'm afraid that if we start participating in this, that how are we going to have the say-so that we need for our residents in this design process?
So in talking with both of our other county administrators was that, and they had all the same feelings, is that this was not to build a facility that would support education or anything like that. It was really for the sole purpose of providing medical examiner support and facilities that serve their needs as it relates to the circuit, and for the law enforcement requirements for their ability to collect information that's used in criminal cases. Beyond that, nobody supports that. So I did, and Jason was a strong ally in that, with Indian River, and Howard agreed as well. So
Still using the budget numbers based on that presentation.
So they're only using the budget numbers on what they're estimating the cost to do the full design documents to bid out. Also included in that process is for us to determine the square footage, and we would not finish or do the design until we all determine the square footage necessary for the project. So some of this cost is based upon not only the design, but also us determining what's the size of the building that's necessary.
I sort of agree with some, if not most of my colleagues' comments. My concern about this, we had a record funding this year at the state level, and the governor vetoed a record level of funding at the state level. The early budget estimates I've seen yesterday or the day before that came out were that we have surpassed, if I understood that right, we have surpassed our collections at this point in time for all of last year's collections at the state level. There's a ton of money at the state level. We have no say over the operational, over the anything of the medical examiner's office. Right?
That's correct.
It's a state function.
We are we're obligated to pay for the cost of the of the service.
Correct.
So each county pays its proportional amount for the operational cost.
What I struggle with this a lot is that we had record funding at the state level. The legislature and the governor, fair enough for them, chose to cut back a lot on that. Great. Good for the taxpayers of Florida. But passing on, in my opinion, and I heard your explanation, Don, I get it, but passing on that state function cost to the local taxpayer and not absorbing it in the state's budget, which was a record number this year, even with what was adopted, for what will either be a $10 or $15 million facility, which in the grand scheme of the state's budget is nothing, is putting it on the backs of the taxpayers in Martin County to fund a state function. I just don't, I struggle with that a lot. I had this conversation with a former legislator a long time ago. Well, wouldn't it be great, and I agreed with the individual, if the state could define its function, the counties could define its function, and we wouldn't cross-pollinate those requests. I'm like, fine, look, if you don't want us to have parks grants anymore through the state, we'll here locally decide what the level of service and the quality of our parks ought to be, but we get no additional state money for parks because it's a county park-run facility. I'm perfectly okay with that. And then we here, the five of us, decide at what level do we want to fund parks. I'm just using an example for our residents. And our residents will be perfectly clear to us to tell us what they expect. And we can determine the level of service, the level of quality, all of those things get decided here. But we also have total oversight over the operational, the maintenance, the condition, the design, and all of that. And then the five of us decide what the outcome of that thing looks like. In this, that's not what's happening. They're asking us to fund or be part of funding a state function, and Commissioner Hurd's right, we don't know what the end game is, but I can absolutely assure you that the next request will come back for funding the construction in a state budget that is record funding. I don't know how that sits with everybody. I get the wanting to play in the sandbox, Ed. I get it. Fully understand that. And I'm sure that's what you're going to launch forward and remind me of what you said.
No, sir.
I struggle. This is an unfunded mandate that hasn't been defined that way, but it's exactly what it is. It is passing on costs back to the county off of the state's budget to our budget. And I struggle with that. I really do. And I'm sure that won't be taken well, but that's just how I see it. So you got a motion, and you got a motion on the floor, Ed?
I just wanted to clarify, I don't disagree with what my colleagues have said. I don't disagree with what Commissioner Smith has said or Commissioner Hurd in terms of, yes, they will come back and make us most likely chip in to pay for the building. If they're asking us to chip in to pay for designing the building, I'm pretty sure they're going to ask us to chip in. And I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Smith, in terms of Tallahassee is flush with cash. But we have sent requests for things that we were really desperate to have paid for here in the county, the Reach Center, other environmental issues, and they've decided yes or no. So I don't understand how we think that when we send our requests up there and they say yes or no, some of them actually made it all the way through the process and in the 11th hour got vetoed by the governor, which was disappointing. I don't know if this is the appropriate place for us to draw a line in the sand. We're not loud enough as a voice to say to Tallahassee, you've just brought in mountains of cash, you should pay for this. Or if this is the appropriate spot for us to draw a line in the sand and say, this is where we will die on this battlefield. I'm not interested in paying for it. In my mind, I'm thinking next Monday, where do we start factoring in these extra numbers versus the things we have to pay for ourselves? But Okeechobee, St. Lucie, and Indian River have capitulated. I'm sure they weren't thrilled to do it, but they have capitulated to do it. And we're the odd men out. I'm just not sure of what the unintended consequences of ruffling feathers within our delegation or up in Tallahassee would mean to us for this particular item. The medical examiner's building is very old, it's decrepit. I haven't been there in a long time, but I know that it is. And if they want to build, as Commissioner Hetherington said, a grander vision of like educational things, they're building it on a college campus. IRSC has a foundation. I've been there when they raise money from individuals. They want to build a college institutional instructional facility. That's not on us. We should pay for our portion. Because when you need those autopsies, so that the public is clear, anyone that passes away at home or it's questionable or it's involved in a crime, they all go up to a universal, multi-shared medical examiner's office. I mean, I've known people that have had to go up there and have had autopsies there. It's not something we can opt out of. We just can't, so.
Pay for that.
Understood, but now that the building has to be built, they might come up with a strategy that those people that chipped in are going to have a certain pay structure, and those that didn't, if we even get that far, and are able to stop at it. I just think that this is not the appropriate spot to poke Tallahassee in the eye.
I'll add one more layer to that, and then we have a motion in a second. The difference for me, Ed, here is that what I would rather make the decision here locally about where we put our dollars and our taxpayers' dollars. When the sheriff comes to us and said, I need $1 million+ for body cameras, we jumped on that like crazy and said, we'll fit that into your budget. When the sheriff comes to us and says, I need to do this and I need to do that, I would rather have those funds available to us or make the decision to put those funds to things directly here in Martin County that we should be funding and we should be accommodating our residents. That's just where I sort of have a difference of opinion on how we make those tough decisions. Mr. Circus this morning said, thank you very much for not having a tax increase in your budget, right? You want to add $2 million 3 years from now, 5 years? That somewhere along the line is going to add up in our budget. And then we have to explain to Mr. Circus or others why we're doing that. Now, whether he comes to that hearing at that point in time or he doesn't, I'm sure he'll remember this conversation and hope everybody remembers this conversation. But when we have to make those decisions and allocate those funds and something else here locally that should be being funded out of our local county tax dollars doesn't get done, those are the decisions we make, and that's why we're having this conversation. So you have a motion and you have a second, right? Carol, you seconded it?
I agree with you. I don't know how we got backed into this corner, but we're backed into a corner.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, last words of wisdom. Thank you, Mr. Donaldson, for your first day and poking poking the bear.
I was poked into the corner just like you all.
Yeah, well.
Really smooth finish.
On some more uplifting notes. Yes, Ms. Woods.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I wanted to give you a little update and a request concerning the Palmar Water Control District. As you all know, it is a very hot topic here in Martin County, and you've given Mr. Donaldson and I and me a lot of direction on this. On June 27th last week, the week before, like Palmar Water Control District had its annual property owners meeting. The county's representative was elected overwhelmingly. It was a 2-to-1 vote. Two of the homeowner representatives immediately lodged objections to the election, which stayed, according to their legal counsel, stayed the election of a new board of supervisors. And they determined that they couldn't make a decision on these objections until August. So that stayed the homeowners meeting, and they then moved on to their landowners meeting. Sorry, not homeowners. Landowners meeting. The board of supervisors then launched into its regular meeting. Even though they were advised that because there was a holdover board, if you will, they should only take those actions that were absolutely necessary. The holdover seat member made a motion to schedule a new meeting. I would call it a special meeting. They're calling it a regular meeting, even though it's not on the schedule. That will be held tomorrow, and the main purpose, there's a number of things on that agenda, but the main purpose is to grant a general access easement, although we just recently saw something like that for utilities, ingress and egress, and some other things, and for the board of supervisors to consider that easement and immediately direct their attorney to record it in the public records. Both Martin and Palm Beach County's attorney's office representatives made objections to that. Our representative, Commissioner Jenkins, objected to that. Commissioner Marino objected to that, but yet they're still holding the meeting. We will be there to object tomorrow, but in the event that the Board of Supervisors takes action on that easement, I feel that it's very important for the county attorney's office to have the authorization from you all to go forward with any litigation that's necessary to protect the citizens of Martin County from this type of a granting of an easement, and that would be including a emergency injunction or a permanent injunction to enjoin the issuance of that easement. And so I'm asking that I have that direction. I believe that's consistent with the direction that you've given me in the past, and this will just further helping us address the real health safety issues that are existing out there in Palmar because of what's going on out there.
Okay. Commissioners? Commissioner Jenkins?
Well, I think you know where I obviously stand. And
Well, we need a motion to give
I
Ms.
would
Woods.
like to give a motion to give Ms. Woods authorization to do
what she needs to do.
Whatever the hell she needs to do to defend us and protect Martin County citizens. So.
Second.
Commissioner? Ooh.
I would like to add that, we'll only take legal action if we need to protect Martin County, and this lawsuit will be held completely in-house. We won't incur any outside attorney's fees.
That was that. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second to authorize or to give Ms. Woods the authorization to do whatever is needed to do to protect the residents and taxpayers of Martin County relative to Palmar. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much,
For the-
and I'll
for the
keep you updated.
If anybody would like to join us tomorrow,
Where is it?
You're more than welcome.
Can I, on
Where-
that
where
note,
will it be
may I,
held?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
It's such a very convoluted subject, and you have the pleasure of living it on the board. But of course, we talked about this this, and every time Palmar comes up, my head, just my eyes want to roll back. But I think maybe more regular at the board kind of updates, perhaps, because you know what is happening, and
No one knows what's
No.
happening.
Yeah.
I just,
I know probably as much as I can absorb. Commissioner Hurd probably knows as much as, and there's a whole lot more that we all just kind of roll our eyes at, so.
just gets very convoluted.
We're happy to provide regular individual briefings on this if you, and I agree with you, Commissioner Hetherington, it is a very, very complicated.
Well, I think we've, up to this point, and we've had ongoing litigation, so since you've been on the board, so that's, I think we've had a little bit of, we've been restrained from doing what needed to be done, so she would fully, right? So
Yes, ma'am. I'd be happy to set up a briefing.
if you really.
Commissioner Campy, the last words.
Really
hopefully.
want.
Thank you. What I found to be helpful, because I'm not an expert on Palmar either, I received a link where I could watch the video of the landowners meeting. No, what was the meeting?
It was both. It was both the landowners meeting and the meeting on the 27th, and we did tape that.
Right,
Here-
I watched the taped version of that in the last couple of days, Commissioner Hetherington. I found that was very enlightening. One, to understand some of the issues, but also to understand the characters, the makeup of how the characters engage each other, some of the staff, our staff, Palm Beach County staff. That was very helpful, and I learned more watching 3 hours of that video than I have if we have updates here, because when you have updates here, it's still sort of nebulous. That video really told the story, so I think I would strongly recommend that. To end on a high note, I just wanted to acknowledge Dr. Rex Santel and his wife Susan. We had been thinking for a long time in Palm City about an iconic sort of like community clock, if you will, like you see in all the movies, a Main Street clock. But it's expensive, and we didn't really know how we were going to achieve that goal. And Susan Corris and Jordan Pastorius from the Office of Community Development also did a lot of the heavy lifting, and it took us over a year, almost a year and a half from thinking about it to getting it up. It's up on Map Road. Dr. Santel and his wife picked up the entire tab for it. It was over $30,000, so it wasn't a small investment on his part, and we are thrilled. It's iconic, and so please come by Map Road. While you're there, you can support some local businesses, but it's really well done, and I wanted to thank the people that did the work. So thanks.
With that, we are adjourned.